Jake Morrison stood in the center of the Grand Council chamber, his hands clasped behind his back. The room stretched out like a cathedral, made of crystal and light. Beings from across the galaxy sat in their elevated seats, looking down at the human delegation. This was supposed to be a place of cooperation and friendship. Today, it felt more like a courtroom. Admiral Lisa Grant stood beside Jake, her military uniform crisp and clean. She had warned him this meeting would not go well. The signs had been there for months. Smaller slights, ignored suggestions, delayed responses to human proposals. But nothing had prepared them for this. Council Prime Zethkor rose from his throne-like chair. He was tall, with blue-gray skin that shimmered under the chamber lights. His people, the Kryn, had been the dominant force in the council for 300 years. He looked down at Jake with something that resembled pity mixed with contempt. "Ambassador Morrison," Zethkor said, his voice booming through the chamber. "We have reviewed humanity's position within our great council. After careful consideration, we have decided on new terms for your continued participation." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. Ben Harper, his trade representative, shifted uncomfortably beside him. They all knew something bad was coming. Zethkor activated a holographic display. Words and numbers floated in the air between them. Effective immediately. Humanity will transfer 60% of all agricultural production to council distribution centers. Your military forces will be reduced to defensive operations only, with no vessels permitted outside your home system without council approval. All research facilities will be open to council oversight and inspection. The chamber erupted in sounds that passed for laughter among the various alien species. The Velox delegates clicked their mandibles in amusement. The Tarthine representatives made a humming sound that expressed satisfaction. Jake stood perfectly still. He had negotiated with pirates, warlords, and corporate executives who would sell their own children for profit. He knew how to control his reactions, but inside, something cold settled into his chest. "These terms are not negotiable," Zethkor continued. "They are necessary measures. Humanity has proven to be aggressive, unpredictable. Your species requires guidance from those who have walked the stars for millennia." Lisa Grant's hand moved slightly toward Jake. He knew what she wanted to say. He knew what most humans would want to say. But he had learned something important in his years as a diplomat. Sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was wait. "May I ask," Jake said calmly, "what justification exists for these demands?" Zethkor's expression showed surprise, as if he had not expected any questions. "Justification? Your people have been members of this council for only 15 years. In that time, you have expanded your territory, increased your military, and pursued technological advancement at an alarming rate. We have seen this pattern before. It leads to conflict." "Our expansion has been peaceful," Jake replied. "Every colony we established was in unclaimed space. Our military growth came at your request, to help defend council borders. And our technological advancement has been shared freely with all council members." A Velox council member named Kresh Tar spoke up. His voice was high-pitched and grating. "You share what you choose to share, human, but we know you keep secrets. Your species cannot be trusted with unlimited freedom." Ben Harper stepped forward before Jake could stop him. "Secrets? In the last 5 years alone, we shared the cure for the Velox plague. We designed the quantum relay network that connects half the council's territory. We built the defensive grid that protects 40% of council space from raiders. What secrets are you talking about?" "One. Enough," Zethkor said, waving his hand dismissively. "The decision is made. You have been informed. That is all that is required." Jake looked around the chamber. He saw faces that had once greeted him warmly, now turned away. He saw beings that humanity had helped, saved, or worked alongside, now sitting silent or nodding in agreement with Zethkor. The Tarthine ambassador actually looked bored, as if this meeting was an inconvenience. "I request a 48-hour recess," Jake said. His voice was steady, professional. To consult with my government. Zethkor laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound. Take your time, primitive ones. Take a week if you wish. The decision is final, regardless of what your leaders say. You will comply, or you will be removed from the council and face sanctions. Other council members joined in the laughter. Jake heard it, all around him. The sound of beings who believed themselves superior, who thought humans were too weak, too young, too dependent to do anything but accept these terms. Lisa Grant touched his arm gently. "Ambassador," she said quietly. "We should go." Jake nodded. He looked up at Zethkor one more time. The Council Prime was smiling, confident, and secure in his position. He had no doubt that humanity would return in 2 days and accept everything. "Thank you for your time, Council Prime," Jake said. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that felt hollow now. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Lisa and Ben followed close behind. As they left the chamber, Jake could still hear the sounds of amusement behind them. The Kryn guards at the door watched them with barely concealed contempt. One of them, a young soldier, actually smirked as Jake passed. Outside the council building, the 3 humans stood in silence for a moment. The artificial sun of Arcturus Prime shone overhead. Ships came and went from the spaceport in the distance. Everything looked normal, peaceful, ordered. "What do we do?" Ben asked. His voice shook slightly. Jake watched a human cargo ship lifting off from the spaceport. It was carrying medical supplies to a Velox colony world. Another gift from humanity to the Council. Another contribution that would be taken for granted. "We go home," Jake said. "And we tell them exactly what happened here." Lisa looked at him carefully. She had served in 3 wars and countless diplomatic missions. She knew the tone in his voice. And then, Jake turned to face both of them. His expression was calm, but something hard had settled into his eyes. Something that had not been there when they walked into the council chamber. Then, he said quietly, "We let them learn what they've lost." The 3 humans walked toward their ship in silence. Behind them, the council building sparkled in the artificial sunlight, beautiful and proud. None of them looked back. President Amy Chen sat at the head of the table in the secure conference room beneath the United Nations building. Around her sat the most powerful leaders on Earth: military commanders, scientists, intelligence directors, and representatives from every major nation. The room was quiet, except for the hum of air conditioning and the occasional shuffle of papers. Jake Morrison had finished his report 10 minutes ago. Since then, no one had spoken. They were all processing what they had just heard. General Ryan Pierce broke the silence first. He was a broad-shouldered man, with gray hair and tired eyes. "They want us to become slaves," he said flatly. "That's what this is. They want us to feed them, protect them, and let them control us." "They didn't use that word," Jake replied, though his tone suggested he agreed. "They called it guidance. Guidance." Director Kate Sullivan repeated. She was the head of Earth's intelligence network, and she had a folder in front of her that she had not yet opened. "That's an interesting choice of words for theft and exploitation." Amy Chen looked at her. "You found something." Kate opened the folder and pulled out several data chips. "We've been monitoring council communications for the past year. It wasn't easy. Their encryption is good, but we're better." She inserted one chip into the table's display system. Documents and messages appeared on the wall screen. "This is from 6 months ago. A private conversation between Zethkor and the Velox High Command." The room read in silence. The words were clear. The council had been planning this for over a year. They had deliberately waited until humanity was deeply integrated into council systems, until human technology protected their worlds, human medicine kept their people healthy, and human food fed their colonies. Then, once humanity was essential, they would impose these terms. Because what could humans do? They were too invested to leave. They thought we were trapped, General Pierce said. They thought we needed them too much to walk away. Dr. Sophie Martinez spoke up. She was the lead scientist on humanity's fusion and quantum projects. A small woman with sharp eyes and nervous energy. They've been stealing our research too. Every breakthrough we shared with them, they've been copying and claiming as their own work. The quantum relay network? Council records show the Kryn invented it 3 years ago. The defensive grid? The Tarthine are taking credit for the design. Can you prove that? Amy asked. Sophie nodded. Timestamps don't lie. We have the original research data, time-stamped and verified. They couldn't have invented these things because we hadn't discovered them yet. But they're rewriting history to make themselves look like the innovators, and us look like the students. Ben Harper, who had come back with Jake, leaned forward. It gets worse. Remember the Velox plague 5 years ago? The one that was killing millions? Everyone remembered. It had been a desperate time. The Velox had begged the council for help. Only human scientists had found the cure. The Velox government just passed a law, Ben continued. Official history now says they developed the cure themselves. With minor assistance from council members. Humans are mentioned in a footnote. 9. Anger rippled through the room. These were people who had sent their best scientists, their resources, their time to help another species survive. And now that species was erasing them from history. Amy Chen stood and walked to the window. Outside, New York City stretched into the distance. Millions of humans going about their lives. They trusted her to make the right decision. To protect them, to lead with wisdom. Show me what we've given them, she said quietly. For the next hour, they reviewed the list. It was staggering. In 15 years, humanity had transformed the council. Human engineers had designed the infrastructure that connected hundreds of worlds. Human doctors had cured 3 major diseases. Human farmers had ended famine on a dozen planets. Human soldiers had died defending council borders from raiders. And more than that, humans had shared freely. Other council species hoarded their technology, trading it only for profit or advantage. Humans had believed in the council's stated mission of cooperation and mutual growth. They had given because they believed in something larger than themselves. How much of the council's current infrastructure depends on our technology? Amy asked. Sophie pulled up a chart. 40% of their defensive systems, 60% of their medical facilities, the entire quantum communication network, most of their advanced agricultural systems. And those are just the obvious ones. Our technology is woven through everything they do now. Can they replicate it without us? Sophie shook her head. Not quickly. Maybe not ever. We didn't just give them tools. We gave them finished products. They never learned the underlying principles. They don't know how to maintain what they have, much less build new systems. General Pierce smiled, but there was no humor in it. So, if we left, 40% of their defenses would go dark within weeks, Sophie said. Medical facilities would start failing. The communication network would collapse in the sectors we maintain. Trade would suffer. And that's assuming everything just stops working. If we actively shut things down, it would be faster. Amy turned back to the room. Options. We could fight, General Pierce said. We have the military strength. More than they know. We could negotiate, Ben suggested. Make counter-demands. Push back. We could comply, someone else said, though their voice was reluctant. Accept the terms and work to change things from inside. Kate Sullivan had been quiet. But now she spoke. Or, we could leave. The room went silent again. Just leave, Ben asked. Walk away from 15 years of work? Walk away from a relationship that was never equal, Kate corrected. They don't see us as partners. They see us as tools. You don't negotiate with someone who fundamentally doesn't respect you. You leave. Amy Chen returned to her seat. She looked tired. The weight of this decision would affect billions of lives across the galaxy. But as she looked around the table, she saw something in their eyes. Not fear, not anger, but a quiet determination. Vote, she said simply. The vote was unanimous. Not one person argued for staying. Not one voice suggested compliance. Amy nodded slowly. Then we begin. Protocol silence. Sophie, start shutting down our shared technology. Do it systematically but quietly. General Pierce, bring our people home. All of them. Every soldier. Every engineer. Every diplomat. Kate, make sure our communications are secure. I don't want the Council knowing anything until we're ready. What do we tell them? Jake asked. Amy thought about that for a moment. She thought about long speeches and dramatic declarations. She thought about listing their grievances and demanding apologies. But in the end, she realized none of that mattered. They had made their choice. Nothing the Council said would change it. Keep it simple, she said. Tell them we're done. No threats, no explanations, just goodbye. Over the next 48 hours, Earth moved with quiet efficiency. Ships were recalled. Systems were shut down. Technology was locked. And President Amy Chen recorded a message. Just 20 seconds long. We came in friendship. We believed in cooperation. We gave freely and asked only for respect in return. You chose to take what we gave and demand even more. We will not be tools for others to use. We are leaving the Council. Effective immediately. We wish you well. That was all. No anger. No threats. Just a simple statement of fact. When Kate Sullivan reviewed the message, she nodded with approval. They'll think we're bluffing, she said. Let them. Amy replied. They'll learn soon enough. Jake Morrison walked into the Council chamber for the last time. He carried only a small data pad. No briefcase full of documents. No aides following behind him. Just him, Lisa Grant, and Ben Harper. 3 humans returning to give their answer. The Council chamber was less crowded than before. Some members had not bothered to attend. They thought they knew how this would end. Humans would complain, maybe negotiate for slightly better terms, then accept. That was what weaker species always did. Zethkor sat on his throne, looking bored. Ah, Ambassador Morrison, you return. Have you consulted with your government? Are you prepared to accept the Council's generous terms? Generous. The word hung in the air like poison. Jake walked to the center of the chamber. He did not bow this time. He simply stood there, straight and tall, and raised the datapad. I have a message from the President of Earth, he said. His voice was calm, almost quiet. She asked me to share it with the Council. He pressed a button. Amy Chen's face appeared on the holographic displays throughout the chamber. Her message played. 20 seconds. Simple words. No anger. No threats. Just a statement of fact. We are leaving the Council. Effective immediately. We wish you well. The message ended. Silence filled the chamber. Then, slowly, laughter began. It started with a few Kryn delegates and spread through the room. They thought it was a joke. A bluff. Humans couldn't leave. They were too dependent. Too invested. Too weak. Zethkor smiled. A dramatic gesture, Ambassador. Very human. But we both know you cannot. Jake set the datapad on the floor. He looked up at Zethkor one last time. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Lisa and Ben followed. They did not run. They did not hurry. They simply walked. Their footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. Ambassador Morrison. Zethkor's voice had lost its amused tone. You cannot simply walk away from... Zeth. Jake kept walking. The massive doors of the chamber opened before them. They stepped through. Behind them, confused voices rose in volume. Questions. Demands. Anger. The doors closed. cutting off the sound. In the corridor outside, other human council workers were already leaving. Scientists, engineers, administrative staff, all of them walking toward the landing bays in silence. No one spoke. No one looked back. They had said everything that needed to be said. On the other side of the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human embassies were emptying. Diplomatic staff were boarding ships. And everywhere, human engineers were beginning the shutdown. Commander Dan Foster stood in the control room of Defense Station 7. This station protected a cluster of Tarthine colonies from raiders. He had spent 3 years here, training local engineers, maintaining the systems, and keeping people safe. Now, he was going to turn it all off. "Sir," one of his team members said, "are you sure about this?" Dan looked at the displays showing the defense grid. Hundreds of satellites and weapon platforms, all powered by human fusion reactors. All controlled by human quantum computers. All maintained by human engineers. The Tarthine had the access codes, but they did not understand how any of it actually worked. "I'm sure," Dan said. He began entering the shutdown sequence. "Start with the outer grid. Work your way in. Leave the critical defense platforms for last. Give them a few hours to realize what's happening." Across the galaxy, thousands of humans were doing the same thing. Not sabotage, not destruction, just shut down. They locked the systems with encryption the Council could not break. They powered down reactors. They disconnected quantum relays. They left instruction manuals. But those manuals were useless without the fundamental understanding of how the technology worked. At Medical Facility 12 on a Velox colony world, Dr. Claire Adams was packing her equipment. The local Velox doctors watched her with confusion. "Dr. Adams," one of them said, "what is happening? We received no notice of your departure." Claire looked at the advanced medical scanner she had designed. It could detect diseases at the molecular level. It had saved thousands of lives on this world alone. The Velox doctors used it every day, but they did not know how it functioned. They just pressed buttons and read results. "I'm going home," Claire said simply. "The equipment will continue to function for a while. After that," she shrugged, "you'll need to figure it out yourselves." Quote, "Whine." Quote, "But we don't know how to repair these systems. We don't understand the principles. You should have learned," Claire said. Her voice was not angry, just tired. "We offered to teach you. You only wanted the tools, not the knowledge. That was your choice." She closed her bag and walked out. Behind her, the Velox doctors stood in confused silence, staring at machines they no longer understood. The quantum communication relay stations were the most dramatic. These stations connected hundreds of worlds, allowing instant communication across vast distances. Humans had built and maintained the entire network. When the shutdown began, the effect was immediate. Messages that should have taken seconds now took hours or days. Trade negotiations collapsed. Defense coordination failed. The smooth flow of information that held the Council together started to break down. In his office on Arcturus Prime, Zethkor was beginning to understand. Reports flooded in from across Council space. Humans were leaving. Systems were shutting down. And no one could stop it. He tried to send a message to Jake Morrison's ship. It bounced back. The relay station that should have carried it was offline. He tried to send ships to intercept the human vessels. The navigation system that plotted safe routes through Council space was human-designed. It was not working. "Get me the Velox High Command," he ordered his aide. "The communication system is down, Council Prime." "Then use the backup system." "That's human technology too, sir. It's offline." Zethkor felt something he had not experienced in many years. Fear. Not of violence or war, but of consequences. Of choices made that could not be unmade. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earthship Destiny. Through the viewport, he could see other human ships gathering, Dozens of them. Hundreds. All heading home in a long, silent convoy. No broadcasts. No final messages. Just departure. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving multiple hails from the council. They're demanding we stop and return. Sir. Ignore them, Jake said. They're offering negotiations. Better terms. They say we can discuss. Ignore them, Jake repeated. They had their chance to negotiate. They chose to dictate. Now they can learn to live with that choice. Lisa Grant stood beside him, watching the council station grow smaller in the distance. How long do you think it will take for them to understand? Jake considered. Days for the systems to fail. Weeks for the consequences to become clear. Months for them to truly understand what they've lost. And if they come after us? Jake smiled slightly. The human convoy passed beyond the council's borders. Behind them, in the silence they left, the first cracks in the council's perfect order were beginning to show. Defense grids flickered and died. Communication networks fragmented. Medical facilities sent desperate pleas for help that no one could hear. And in the Grand Council chamber, Zethkor sat alone on his throne, finally understanding the simple truth that humans had known all along. Respect could not be demanded. Trust could not be forced. And partnership required both sides to value each other. The council had failed to understand this. Now they would learn the hard way. In the silence, in the absence, in the empty spaces where humans used to stand. 3 months after the humans left, Argesas and the Tainwork, Council Prime Zethkor stood in the emergency command center, watching his civilization crumble. The massive display screens showed reports from across council space. Every one brought worse news. The Targrax hit 2 more colonies, General Thaxuul reported. The Kryn military commander looked exhausted. We couldn't respond in time. The defense grid in Sector 9 is completely offline. We lost contact with both colonies 4 hours ago. Zethkor closed his eyes. The Targrax were raiders who had plagued the Council's borders for decades. Human-designed defense systems had kept them at bay for years. Without those systems, the raiders were coming back with a vengeance. How many colonies have we lost now? He asked, though he knew the answer. 6 confirmed destroyed. 4 more under attack. We don't have the ships to protect them all. We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. Yes, sir. But half our ships are stranded at the wrong bases. The quantum navigation system humans maintained is gone. Ships can still travel, but plotting safe courses takes days instead of hours. By the time we arrive anywhere, it's too late. A Velox representative named Mira Khan burst into the command center. She was breathing hard, her insect-like features twisted in panic. The plague is back, she said without preamble. Velox Prime reports 3,000 cases in the capital city alone. It's spreading. Zethkor felt his blood run cold. That's impossible. The humans cured that disease. Years ago. They suppressed it, Mirakan corrected. With ongoing treatment protocols. Treatments our doctors administered, but never truly understood. When the human medical staff left, they took that understanding with them. We kept using the equipment for a while, but we didn't know how to maintain it. The machines have started failing, and now the plague is back. How long until it spreads across your entire world? Weeks. Maybe less. Mirakan's voice cracked. We have 6 billion people on Velox Prime. If this spreads unchecked like it did before, she didn't finish. She didn't need to. Everyone remembered the plague's first outbreak. Millions dead. Entire cities quarantined. Only human intervention had stopped it. And now it was back. A Tarthene administrator approached with another datapad. Council Prime. The trade situation is getting worse. 17 major shipping companies have suspended operations. They can't track routes without the quantum relay network. Food shipments to the inner colonies are backed up by weeks. We're starting to see shortages. Zethkor took the datapad and threw it across the room. It shattered against the wall. This is insanity. How did we become so dependent on one species? We ruled this galaxy before humans ever left their planet. We didn't rule it very well, General Thaxul said quietly. The humans showed us better ways. We got comfortable. We forgot how to do things the hard way. Can't our engineers reverse engineer their technology? The Tarthine administrator shook his head. We've tried, sir. The devices are elegant, brilliantly designed. But they're built on principles we don't fully understand. It's like giving writing to someone who doesn't know language. They can copy the symbols, but they can't create new ones. Zethkor walked to the window. Outside, Arcturus Prime looked peaceful, but he knew it was an illusion. Beneath the surface, society was unraveling. The council that had seemed so stable and powerful 3 months ago was revealing itself to be a structure built on human foundations. And those foundations were gone. Have we heard anything from Earth? He asked. We've sent 47 messages, someone replied. No response to any of them. What about the human colony worlds? The settlements outside council space? They've closed their borders. They're not responding to hails either. Send more messages. Offer them better terms. Tell them we'll negotiate. Sir, we've already offered to withdraw all the previous demands. We've offered equal partnership, resource sharing, even seats on the High Council. They haven't responded to any of it. Zethkor turned back to the room. Then send ships. Military ships. Show them we're serious. General Thaxul looked uncomfortable. Sir, I would advise against that. It could be seen as aggression. I don't care how it's seen. Send a battle group to Earth. Not to attack, just to encourage dialogue. The general nodded reluctantly. 3 days later, a Kryn battle group consisting of 12 warships departed for human space. They were the pride of the Kryn military, fast, powerful, and equipped with the best non-human technology available. They never reached Earth. The battle group ran out of fuel 2 weeks into their journey. The refueling stations along their route were human-designed and human-maintained. They were dark and empty now. The ships drifted in space, sending desperate calls for help. It took another week for rescue vessels to reach them. When the embarrassing news reached the council, Zethkor stopped making threats. The humans had proven a point without firing a single shot. On Velux Prime, the plague death toll passed 100,000. Medical facilities were overwhelmed. Doctors were dying alongside their patients. The Velox government declared a state of emergency and sealed off entire continents to slow the spread. Miracon sent a personal message to Jake Morrison. A humble plea, begging for help. She received an automated response. This account is no longer monitored. In the border regions, the Targrax raiders grew bolder. Without the human defense grid, entire sectors were vulnerable. Council military forces were spread too thin, arriving too late, unable to coordinate properly without the communication network. Colonies that had been safe for a decade were suddenly on the front lines again. And then the fighting started within the council itself. The Tarthine blamed the Kryn for pushing the humans away. The Velox blamed everyone for not appreciating what they had. The Kryn insisted this was all temporary, that their own engineers would solve the problems soon, but the problems weren't getting solved. They were getting worse. Every day brought new failures, new disasters, new evidence that the council had been living on borrowed technology they never understood. Zethkor sat alone in his office one night, reviewing economic reports. The numbers were devastating. The council's economy was projected to contract by 30% within a year, 40% the year after that. Without the trade networks, the stable communication, and the defensive umbrella that humans had provided, everything was falling apart. He pulled up an old recording, a speech he had given 5 years ago, praising the council's strength and wisdom. He had been so confident then, so certain that the council was eternal and unshakable. Now he knew the truth. The council had been strong because of human contributions. Wise because humans had shared their knowledge. United because human technology had connected them. Take away the humans, and what remained was exactly what had existed before they arrived. Fractious, weak, and struggling, his communication terminal beeped. Another emergency, another crisis. Instead, he opened a blank message form and addressed it to President Amy Chen. He wrote slowly, choosing each word carefully. Not demands this time. Not orders or threats or condescending guidance. Just truth. Simple and painful truth. We were wrong. We see that now. We need help. Please. He sent the message knowing it might never be answered. Knowing that even if it was, the humans owed them nothing. They had made their choice. Now, they had to live with it. Outside his window, another ship lifted off carrying refugees from a colony the Council could no longer protect. The stars looked the same as they always had, but the galaxy felt darker now. Colder, more dangerous. Zethkor understood, finally, what humans had been trying to tell them all along. Civilization wasn't maintained by pride or power. It was maintained by cooperation, respect, and the willingness to value what others contributed. The Council had forgotten that. They had taken the easy path, demanding instead of earning, taking instead of appreciating. And now, they were paying the price. 1 year after the humans left, a single, small shuttle approached Earth. It carried no weapons and no escorts, just one passenger and a pilot. The passenger was Zethkor, former Council Prime of the Galactic Council. He had resigned his position 3 months ago, when the Council effectively dissolved. Now he came as a simple representative, carrying nothing but hope and humility. The shuttle pilot, a young Kryn named Velshera, spoke nervously. Sir, sensors are detecting multiple defense platforms. Weapons we've never seen before. They're targeting us. Zethkor looked at the displays. The Sol system was defended by ships and stations that the Council had never known existed. Sleek vessels that made Kryn warships look crude. Defense grids that made the technology humans had shared seem simple. All of it hidden. All of it waiting. Hail them, Zethkor said. Tell them I come seeking an audience with President Chen. Tell them I am unarmed and alone. The response came quickly. A human voice, professional and calm. Former Council Prime. Zethkor, you are cleared to approach Earth. Follow the designated flight path exactly. Any deviation will be met with defensive measures. They followed the path. As they flew through Earth's orbital space, Zethkor saw the true extent of human capability. Shipyards building vessels of advanced design, research stations that dwarfed anything the Council possessed, agricultural platforms that could feed billions. The humans had always been holding back, showing the Council only what they chose to share. The shuttle landed at a facility in Geneva. Zethkor stepped out to find a simple reception. No grand ceremony, no crowds, just Jake Morrison, waiting with 2 security officers. Ambassador Morrison, Zethkor said. He bowed, a deep bow of genuine respect. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Jake's expression was neutral. Walk with me. They walked through the facility in silence. Through windows, Zethkor could see Earth's cities. Clean, prosperous, peaceful. Nothing had collapsed here. Nothing had failed. Humanity had not needed the Council at all. The Council had needed humanity. President Chen will see you, Jake said finally. But first, I need to understand something. Why are you here? To beg. Zethkor said simply. To ask for help. To admit that we were wrong. And if we say no? Zethkor stopped walking. Then we continue to suffer the consequences of our choices. The plague has killed 3 million Velox now. The Targrax have destroyed 15 colonies. The council doesn't exist anymore. Member species have withdrawn into their own territories. We're fracturing into isolated kingdoms again. If you say no, we deserve it. Jake studied him for a long moment. Come on. President Amy Chen met them in a simple office. Not the grand halls of the United Nations. She wore civilian clothes and looked like someone who had been working long hours. No pretense. No performance. Just a leader doing her job. Former Council Prime, she said, gesturing to a chair. Please sit. Zethkor sat. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Amy continued. I received your messages. All of them. The demands, the threats, then the pleas. I read every one. But you didn't respond. No. Because words are easy. Anyone can apologize when they're desperate. I needed to see if your people would learn. If they would understand. And have we? Amy pulled up a display. It showed news reports from across former council space. Zethkor saw Kryn engineers working alongside Tarthine scientists, trying to rebuild systems together. Velox doctors sharing their limited resources with neighboring species. Former enemies cooperating because they had no choice. You're starting to, Amy said. You're beginning to value each other, to actually work together instead of competing. The crisis forced you to remember what the council was supposed to be about. That's why you left, Zethkor realized. Not just because of how we treated you. You left to teach us. We left because we had to, Amy corrected. Because staying would have enabled your worst behavior. But yes, we hoped you might learn something. Zethkor leaned forward. We've learned. We understand now. And we're asking, humbly, for help. Not for control. Not for dominance. Just help. The plague is killing millions. The raiders are destroying colonies. People are suffering. And if we help, what changes? Everything, Zethkor said immediately. We're proposing a new alliance. Not a council with high members and low members. A true alliance of equals. No species above another. Shared governance. Shared decisions. And respect. Real respect. Amy looked at Jake. What do you think? I think actions matter more than words, Jake said. But I also think people are dying. And we're not the kind of species that lets people die to make a point. Amy nodded. She turned back to Zethkor. Here's our offer. We'll provide humanitarian aid. Medical teams to help with the plague. Defense assistance against the raiders. Technical support to restore critical systems. But there are conditions. Anything. First, no more lies. No more taking credit for our work. No more rewriting history. We want honest records of who contributed what. Agreed. Second, we share our technology, but this time, we teach the principles. Your people need to understand how things work, not just how to use them. That means real education programs. Years of them. Agreed. Third, we establish the Alliance of Free Worlds. Every member species has equal voice. Decisions are made collectively. No prime council. No hierarchy. True partnership. Agreed. Zethkor felt something like hope stirring in his chest. And fourth, Amy said, her voice becoming firmer. This is the last chance. If your people fall back into old habits, if they start demanding or taking or disrespecting us again, we walk away. And next time, we don't come back. Ever. Understood? Understood. Amy stood and extended her hand. Then, we have an agreement. Zethkor took her hand. Human custom. A handshake. Simple and direct. Equal to equal. 3 months later, Captain Emma Lewis stood on the bridge of the medical ship, Mercy. Around her, a crew of humans, Velox and Kryn, worked together. Not as masters and servants. Not as superiors and inferiors. Just as colleagues. They were approaching Velox Prime, carrying the treatment protocols for the plague. Human doctors had refined the original cure, making it more effective and easier to produce. Now they would teach Velox doctors not just how to administer it, but how to make it themselves. A young Velox child appeared on the communication screen. She had been selected to greet the arriving ships. Captain Lewis, on behalf of Velox Prime, we thank you for coming. But I have a question, if I may? Of course. Why did you come back? After how we treated you? After we erased you from our history books and took credit for your work? Why help us now? Emma smiled. Because walking away taught you what you refused to learn. That kindness isn't weakness. That contribution isn't subordination. We didn't come back for your government or your politicians. We came back for people like you. Because everyone deserves a chance to live and grow and build something better. The child seemed to think about that. Will you teach us? Really teach us? So we don't need to depend on you? That's exactly the plan. We want partners, not dependents. Species that can stand on their own and choose to work together. Not because they have to, but because they want to. The Mercy entered orbit around Velox Prime. Below, Emma could see cities scarred by plague but still standing. People who had suffered but survived. A civilization that had learned hard lessons but might emerge stronger for it. Dr. Sophie Martinez appeared at Emma's side. Medical teams are ready to deploy. And the teaching programs are prepared. This is going to take years, you know. I know. But it's worth it. Building something that lasts usually is. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human engineers working alongside alien technicians. Human doctors training alien physicians. Human diplomats helping to build the new alliance. Not leading it. Not controlling it. Just participating as equals. In Geneva, President Amy Chen reviewed the latest reports. The alliance had 12 member species now. More were asking to join. Not because they wanted access to human technology, but because they believed in the principles. Equality. Respect. Cooperation. Freely given. Not demanded. Jake Morrison entered her office. The Tarthine just sent a message. They've completed their first independently built quantum relay station. It's not as advanced as ours, but it works. They figured it out themselves. Amy smiled. Good. That's how it should be. We give them the tools to learn, and they take it from there. We're not the galaxy's parents. No, we're their friends. And friends help each other grow. Outside, Earth spun peacefully in space. Around it, the alliance slowly took shape. Built not on dependence, but on dignity. Not on power, but on partnership. And in the quiet strength of humans who had walked away in silence, then returned with open hands, the galaxy found something it had been missing. A chance to be better. Together.